everyone, it's me, it's Primetime Moff, and I'm here with my illustrious, wonderful, and handsome co-host, as ever, Oddimus Prime. Thanks for joining me, mate.
Hello.
And I want to say, whether you're watching us or listening to us, we welcome you to our weekly show, Transformers 84 to 24, 40 years of rolling out. A show that in the years of the brand's 40th anniversary, we'll look back and delve into the vast history of the Transformers. If you're new to the show, we'll be covering the franchise in each of its own weekly episodes with special episodes throughout the year. So please like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications to make sure you don't miss anything in this incredible journey. And we'll share a little bit more on the what's available on our channel at the end of the show. So firstly, hello Simon, how are you?
Hello, Moff. How are you doing? I'm good. I'm good, yes.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm good too. I'm looking forward to discussing our topic tonight, which is 1989. We were talking beforehand, and this is the point I think both of us kind of fell away a wee bit. We started to kind of fall away a wee bit from the Transformers, and it's quite an interesting one to come back to and look at now as an adult. And I've said this already as when we talked about some of the previous stuff. I look back and go, why wasn't I into this? I mean, I know why, but I wish I had just given them a chance, because I think had I experienced, Pretenders, for example, or as I like to call them, Power Masters, because I'm so upset with them. I think I would have. I can't imagine a time where I'd have picked up a Pretender, not when I held the thing in my hand, where this is cool. But so we're going to go into 1989, and it's the start of the period that could be referred to as the dark period, where there isn't as much media. These episodes will probably be a little bit shorter because there's limitations on what's out there at this point, and it's not really quite as in depth as previous episodes. Whereas 1986 we had to split it across 2 episodes, and even at that we really struggled.
Yeah, I definitely want to go back and do another movie episode. There's so many things that we didn't cover in that I'd love to go back to.
So let's talk about cartoon. So we talked that there isn't really new Western releases at this point. We have a continuation of the Weird and Wacky Season 5 that we talked about last week. And then in Japan, we saw the end of Super God Master Force, and then Victory starts off in the year. I think we said all that needs to be said or should ever be said about season 5 last week. So we'll briefly pass over that. So I talked last week about Master Force and coming into it afresh. I haven't given Victory a shot yet. It is on the plans, but the way I watched Master Force was the vast majority over the course of the weekend of my birthday, and I kind of want to do the same with Victory, because I think if I was to just do like an episode a night or an episode every 2 or 3 nights, I probably wouldn't get through it all. I wouldn't get through it all. I am probably more curious with Victory. I suppose with Master Force, I went back to it because of the fans' hobby releases of the Power Masters. Victory's similar for me based on the Deathsaurus and Victory Saber getting HasLabs. So there's clearly a little bit of a push from Western Hasbro now to kind of look at Victory and Master Force and the Japanese stuff. But certainly back then it was not something that I certainly wasn't aware of a Japanese cartoon until the internet era. How about yourself?
Yeah, same. I think we sort of touched upon it quite a bit last week. But as I said, I think the first time I was really aware of it was probably around the time my friend's dad brought some stuff back from Japan. So we had cartoon stills of things we hadn't seen before. But the first time I saw an episode wasn't until they stuck the 4 soldiers from the sky on that Transformers the movie release.
Yeah.
But yes, it is. So this year we've got Fight Super Robot Lifeform Transformers Victory.
Shows off the tongue.
It's just such. Well, there's also Shooter and Grand's Master Force Super Secrets. I haven't looked
So you're
into
not allowed
what
to talk
that
about
is.
that? It's a secret?
Well, then let's leave that to one side.
It's a super
I'm
secret.
I'm guessing that's a special.
Yeah.
I must admit I didn't research it. But yes, so I think season 5 had some more just reruns of old episodes. It's nothing
Yeah,
particularly
it was.
exciting.
There's nothing. I
But
think
yeah,
we're about to go through that period of there's not really much exciting, until we
yeah,
hit Beast Wars, do we really get a new proper media? And I think at this era, Hasbro clearly didn't feel they needed a cartoon to try and sell the line.
Mm,
They weren't pushing, going, well, they went on their own direction. They started to do stuff that wasn't really in Japan, and Japan then really pushed on and continued with it. And we saw that at kind of Beast Wars era as well, that Japan did that, and to an extent they've done that with other lines like Masterpiece, for example, where they've 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 done different to Hasbro, whereas it feels like most Hasbro stuff appears over there. And I think if we think through our 40 years we're going to come up to, this is, what could be classed as a dark period. This could be the period that many franchises hit this point where they started to stumble along and then really never recovered. If you think of Thundercats at one point was huge and then very quickly stumbled and never really managed to come back. It had a revival 2011 or 12 or
yeah,
something like that, was it?
yeah.
But there's many cat franchises. Mask. I think one of the reasons I fell away from Transformers this era was Mask. Mask really struck something for me. I really enjoyed it because it probably was more realistic vehicles. But there's a franchise that was very popular, had comics, had cartoons, had toys, and then just did never seem to recover. Certainly at this point there was potential that Transformers could have went that way.
I mean, we're also getting into the era where some of the other big franchises started. You've got Turtles just around the corner, which obviously
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say stole a huge portion of the market. I don't know if
Oh, it
that's
did.
entirely
It.
true, but
I think.
yeah,
I think Transform. For me, I always think He-Man, Transformers, and Turtles are the three biggest of the '80s that really just captured. Like there was you had to have kind of feel to it. Top toys. You talk about that. It's the Turtles is the first one I ever remember having that craze feel to it. Probably because I wasn't old enough when Optimus came out to have that, but I know that you look back and you hear about it. That Optimus in 1984 was the toy to own, and was a big challenge for parents at Christmas. The first one I recall was Turtles, and then from me it was from that to Toy Story. So yeah, there's a good chance that people it's the and kids do it. My kids have both done it. Here's a toy line I really like. Here's a toy line I really like, and then somebody goes, "Oh, look over here!" And Turtles massively did that.
yeah. I will fully confess that despite liking Turtles quite a lot, I didn't have a single turtle toy when I
Oh,
was a kid. I think so. We're at the point pretty much with me that I got into Warhammer, so my toys sort of took a little bit of a
mm.
back step, and I started spending my money on tiny toy soldiers that I would never get painted, um, which I still do.
That is
Um,
the hobby, is it? Is that not part of the hobby?
well,
But
exactly. That is my hobby these days is collecting lots and lots of sprue and keeping it in crates, never touching it. But yeah, so other things sort of took away a lot of the original Transformers fans' attention. So they were bringing out lots of new toys with new gimmicks and new things to try and bring in new audiences and new kids because you can't rely on the people that played with it in 1984 anymore because those kids are like getting older. They're getting into
yeah,
their teens and they're not wanting to play with toys anymore. So it's a sort of a natural drop off that that I think sort of happens with all of the lines. He-Man had it, G.I. Joe had it, Thundercats, as you say, they only lasted a couple of years before they sort of disappeared into obscurity. Mask only lasted 3 or 4 years.
4 seasons it
Centurions
had.
lasted like
Yeah.
1 year. All these
Yeah.
iconic things
Yeah.
that we love now. When they were toy lines, when they were originally out, they didn't last as long because everything had to constantly move forward. There had to be a new thing,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
new thing that was going to attract the parents and the kids to buy and stuff. So new cartoons and everything else. And Transformers, as far as Hasbro are concerned, was sort of petering out. A lot of the releases that we
Yeah.
got over this period, over the next few years, mostly were European and Japanese.
Yeah. Yeah.
America, that they'd almost forgotten it.
No. I've heard many people say, if it wasn't for Europe, Transformers would have died. And I don't know how much I buy into that, because I think Japan really, really kept it going. Like
Oh yeah,
Japan
100%.
absolutely kept it going, more probably than Europe, but Europe, and we'll talk about Europe and Andy Cousins, for example. We'll talk about in future episodes. But I think the interesting bit is, as we saw with most toy lines, they evolved their kind of gimmick. Mask, for example, did first 2 years were kind of very straightforward. Season 3 goes into the race gimmick, and they're all got a race gimmick. And then season 4's a split seconds, and they've all got a hologram. All these toy lines, including Transformers, went right. Okay, how do we evolve? We become with gimmicks, and actually, that's there from post movie. So I always think seasons 1 to 3, our first 3 years, are really just the gimmick is transforming, and
Yeah,
to me that's always been enough. Like that's a gimmick; it doesn't need
yeah.
anything else. Then it went to the Masters gimmick of whether it be Target Masters or Headmasters, and then Power Masters. They're all kind of Masters gimmicks, something a little robot that does something else with it. Then we kind of got into Pretenders. Then we go into Micromasters, which are absolutely influenced by that drive for Micro Machines were ridiculously popular. Like I think people forget how ridiculously popular we are. I picked up at the toy fair recently. We picked up the aircraft carrier I had as a kid, and they're cheap. They're cheap toys to pick up now, which is joyful when
Yeah.
you're in a toy fair. But I remember even just when I was opening it back up again, I'm thinking, I loved Micro Machines. They hit the right time for me. I talked about this. That's the kind of point where we moved into a caravan, had very limited space. Micro Machines hit an incredible spot for me. And I
I was
think
gonna say,
Micromasters could have done that if I'd really
yeah,
gotten it.
yeah. I mean, Micromasters are they're a great fun, uh, simple transformations. They look cool little jets. I mean, your Micromasters, you had Ring Raiders. Sorry, Micro
Yep, Ring
Machines, you had
Raiders,
Ring
yeah.
Raiders. There's a couple of other Megaforce was another line that had like die-cast little vehicles and then bigger
Yeah.
playsets and stuff. That was awesome. But of course, weirdly,
You got the Mighty
ironically,
Max and stuff.
oh yeah, exactly. Manta Force.
Yeah, Manta Force, yeah.
All of that was sort of around this sort of time. So smaller was obviously the way to go.
Financially, from
So
companies, it probably was a good standpoint of
yeah,
actually, let's
exactly,
produce smaller
exactly.
toys and get more money.
Ironically, earlier today I was opening my Micro Machines Optimus Prime, which came with a Micro Machines Trax, which is yeah.
And we'll get to it, but once we get to whatever year that was released, and I do my talking robots for the week, that's the toy that I've said in that year is a toy I want. I desperately want that Optimus Prime Micro Machines and Tracks. So we'll be having a conversation off here about that, Simon, and how do I get one? But yeah, let's talk about the toys for this year. So let's get through some of them, right? So we do have some more pretenders and some absolute stonking pretenders. You've got one that I just picked up recently, Octopunch. You've got Bludgeon. I'm not going to go through every toy. I'm going to go through a couple. You've got Double Header, Longtooth, some cracking pretenders. You've got the classic pretenders. I know for a fact. I remember seeing the classic pretenders and just being like, no. I I coveted an original Jazz like you wouldn't believe at this point. I never got one because my friend and I who played Transformers together, we always purposely didn't get the same toys, so we'd always have a good challenge between each other. And he had Jazz, so I never ever got a Jazz because of that. I eventually got a Jazz when I moved away. He gave me his Jazz, which was incredibly kind of him. But at that point, when I saw Pretender Jazz, I remember just thinking, this is not for me. This is not the trans. I want Jazz. I don't want Pretender Jazz. Which is the irony. I think when we talk about get to the Gold Box classics, I started to fall back in love with Transformers again. But yeah, so then we get to kind of some of the Micromaster bigger sets. You've got some cracking just patrol sets. You've got the Sports Car Patrol Assortment 2. You've got what else have you got? Let me think. So Battle Patrol, Rescue Patrol, some absolute stonkers in there. Then you go into the Micromaster Transports. So you've got Rough Stuff, Hot House, Ironworks. You have some absolute crackers in there, including the very comically and very famously comically now Erector. Sadly, I've never had an Erector. But there is some stuff in there that, again, even the Ultra, I'm forgetting the Ultra Pretenders as well. So there's absolute brilliant toys in there that, again, if I was to pick up back then, I think I would have enjoyed. It never. Toys have to grab you on the shelf to make you go, I'm taking this toy over another. And I didn't feel that with this kind of year. I have got a favourite for this year, and I do. It's one from being a kid, but they just never grabbed me. What about yourself? What was your memory of these being on the shelf?
I get so we're at that weird period of time as well that this stuff that was coming out. Obviously, there was still lots of stuff from the previous years on the shelves. So I think, if anything, the figures I was getting at that point were ones from previous ranges. I wasn't necessarily picking up the Micromasters. In fact, I'm not entirely certain I owned any Micromasters, and I definitely didn't have a single Pretender until much later on. However, around that time, I became really good mates with my now best mate, and
We've not known each other that long.
Sorry, it's Paddy. No, my best mate Chris, he had a load of figures. He's the same guy whose dad had bought the drill horn. But he had a load of the Micromasters. He had the Airstrike Patrol. He had Flat Top. He had loads of the Pretenders as well, including some of the Ultra Pretenders. So even though I wasn't necessarily buying Transformers or getting Transformers for birthdays and Christmases at that time, I would have been, 11, 12. I was getting to play with them around Chris's house after we bonded over Power Master Optimus Prime in a guitar lesson. Anyway, yeah. So I think, yeah, that's kind of my sort of take on them. I remember seeing them in the shops, but I distinctly remember not buying any of them.
Yeah, it was. The interesting bit, I don't remember which set it was, but one of my favourite toy memories as a child involves a set of Micromasters. Again, I don't know which one, but it was our local toy shop, which was a really big, proper sized toy shop. It became a Beatties, but it was shutting down, and they had a 50% off everything. And my mum and dad took us, and we were given say a £10. It wasn't huge, but we were given our budget. We were in, got a wee amount, put it on the counter, and put it through. And it turned out they had already been reduced on the shelf. They were all reduced in price, and put it on the counter, ran it through, and the woman was like, say it was £10. She's like, that's like £4.90. It was half off everything on the price. And I don't think I've ever had the same feeling of joy realizing I just had the opportunity to double what I got essentially for free in my brain. So I had a set of Micromasters. I had a Star Wars, one of the mini rigs, and I remember the two of them. I remember having them. I couldn't remember, as I say, couldn't tell you which of the Micromasters it was, but it was such a joyous feeling to go and get. So I always have the vision of what the Micromaster pack looked like. I just couldn't tell you which one it was, It's
Yeah.
a few years ago. My memory's maybe not that good, but so I always think of that. And also, actually, I think this year has something else that really sticks out from my memory, and it's about the VHSs, and it's around the action figure, action adventure collections, where it was a kind of 3-in-1, and I can never remember the third, but I'm sure it's Cops, Transformers, and another. Might be G.I. Joe, might be, I don't know. I don't remember. Don't remember that, but I just remember that tape and Cops being amazing and being a way to watch more Transformers. I'm sure the one that came out this year was Ghost in the Machine was included in it. I might have to be might be an eBay hunt to try and find these things at some point in the future. But yeah, I think that these are the point where it was a Temple Video produced a lot of videos this year, a lot of kind of 2-packs of stuff that I'm quite confident most people, that's how we watched the Transformers most of the time back then. You didn't have your on demand, you just watched what you could catch or VHSs. So and it's interesting that there's quite a few brands released the VHSs as well. And you think of that now, it's generally going to be one company's going to produce the a cartoon or a TV show. Whereas back then, there's a couple of companies produced the videos over the course of the first few years of the cartoon, anyway.
Yeah, one of the things that does stick in my mind again is the Headmasters VHS, which had a second version which had the Return of Optimus Prime on it.
Yep.
So yeah, just very much remember watching that to death. But
That was the
again,
first way I saw that tape. Actually, fair, yeah, it's a good point because that tape's the first way I saw Return of Optimus Prime. I've talked before how much I loved the Rebirth one, and then I remember picking up and going, "Oh, this has got more on it," and being like, "Oh my gosh, this is actually explains why Optimus is there."
yes, yes. Even though it's completely out of sequence and technically doesn't make any sense. But yeah, and again, the Marvel UK Transformers comic at this time was going great guns and had all the characters from the previous year had all sort of become mainstays like Deathwind and Darkwing and the Pretenders and people like Carnivàc and whatnot. So yeah, I just really remember, when did the Pretender Beasts come out? Was that the previous year? Must have been. Yeah,
Yeah, it was.
yeah,
Yeah, Carnivac. Yeah, I'm sure they were.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, and the other thing we haven't really sort of mentioned too much is the classic Pretenders, where the first time you got like reissues of the original characters in a
Yeah,
different form. I think
I
in
have to say,
America.
I think I fancy them more now. Again,
Oh yeah,
corrected a bit of
100%.
I get it totally didn't. The jazz one was that's probably one of my biggest memories as a kid of being like, no, this is not for me. It was the jazz. But I look at the Bumblebee probably is I hate to say Bumblebee, but Bumblebee's probably one out of the classic Pretenders that I'm like, that's the coolest. I like the colours of it. Grimlock's kind of funky, but Grimlock doesn't really. Grimlock's a awesome T-Rex. It doesn't need to have anything
Yeah,
else. The Bumblebee looks kind of the one I think I would connect with the most. The Jazz and the Starscream, they don't scream Jazz and Starscream to me in the slightest.
no, no.
Um,
I hated them. I saw them in the shops and was like, I do not want these. These are stupid. But yeah, again, would quite happily get any of them now.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah. I think I'd love it. I would love to experience, and he's not my pick for the week, but I'd love to experience Thunderwing. I think Thunderwing would be cool.
yeah,
And then even like Monstructor, like I kick myself going, why would I not have been interested in these kind of things? Like they look just so much fun. They look absolutely brilliant. But I wasn't.
yeah. The my mate had Vroom, but I never saw or touched Thunderwing until, actually, I don't think I have actually held a G1 Thunderwing or
But
Crossblades for that matter. But the Ultra Pretenders, Skyhammer and Roadblock, again, my mate had them, so that was that.
Any more you want to chat about toys before we? I think we're almost
Well,
covered for this year because, as I say, there's not as much
yeah,
in it.
it's not a huge amount. I think we're on to bot of the year.
Yeah, bought a year. So I am going to go with something that I had from this year. I only had a couple, and it was only Micromasters, but I had rough stuff, and I absolutely loved that little fella. And I don't know why it didn't push me to get more. I think it was maybe just that they were because I had maybe the turtles. It was maybe the reason I didn't really push to get any more the Micromasters. I absolutely loved rough stuff. I thought he just looked cool as, and we were in the caravan. Almost he became like my mini Optimus because he was a truck with a trailer. You know, it's very easy to kind of do it that way. But yeah, I absolutely loved G1 rough stuff. What about yourself? What have you picked for this year?
So I was going to go for the Autobot. Autobot. My words are failing me. Decepticon Airstrike Patrol, because they were just such awesome looking jets, and
Yeah.
you had an F-14, you had a Warthog, you had some others, and a stealth fightery thing, and I can never remember what the other one was. But I'm not going to go for that because I
Oh,
remember that even though I didn't have it, I did borrow for an extended period of time flat top off my mate, and I played with that toy to death. It was just such a fun little stupid, doofy, ridiculous. Once again, Transformers manages to create a aircraft carrier that turns into a jet. Like
it's a theme.
it's yeah, it's definitely a theme. But I mean, all three, well, all two modes were quite fun. And the Micromaster that came with it, whose name completely escapes me, was like a little phantom. I think it was a phantom. Looks like a phantom. But he had a different transformation to a lot of all the other jets. Most of the other jets were basically, you know, pull the arms out,
Yeah.
flip the head back, fold the wings in. That was it. But he was more like the Warthog one. And had his arms were his the missile fuel pods underneath his wings, or missiles, or whatever they were. And yeah, he was cool. And that's my one.
Nice. Good choice. Good choice. So we'll wrap up. Thank you for joining us. That has been a look back at Transformers in 1989. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please remember we actually also produce some additional content in the forms of weekly mini episodes where you might get some Talking Robots Tuesday, some retro reviews. And as we go forward, because there is opportunities for new primes, a prime time with Oddimus. So please, if you did enjoy it, like, subscribe, turn on your notifications to ensure that you don't miss anything in this incredible journey as we take you through the 40 years of Transformers. Thank you very much, and see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.